My pleasure to have you here on a Wednesday. Thanks a lot for stopping by. It is your Morning Cup of Joe on the 950. Thanks a lot for being here. It is the Texas Hour, the 8 o'clock hour. Nothing but Texas news in this hour. A lot of you holding on to talk about the race stuff that we were talking about, La Raza, talking about illegal immigrants, the president, what he's not doing now when it comes to illegal immigrants who are here from El Salvador because of a natural disaster from 11 years ago. He's not going to send them back. He just appointed somebody to a high-level cabinet position. Well, not cabinet position, but an administration position in the Obama administration who used to be a vice president of La Raza. We'll continue that talk in a moment. First, though, I want to welcome Craig James to the program. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing great. Thank you.
I'm really glad to have you on today. Of course, you were a superstar at Stratford High School right here in Houston, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but I was a part of a team. That was the best football team I ever played on, including our Super Bowl team. It was a lot of good guys, a lot of fun. Seems like 100 years ago.
I've got a real beef with you because some of Miami Dolphins, since Marino retired, what is going? All right, we'll talk football. We'll talk some other time. We'll talk more about pro football. Well, let's talk about politics. You've got a cushy job at ESPN. Listen, I'm in broadcasting. We do okay. If you've achieved any success, you do just fine. You're a former pro football player, so it's not about a money thing. I don't think it's about power. You probably have more people know you for the other stuff that you were doing. It's not about notoriety. It's got to be about real issues in the state of Texas. What was the impetus for you making the decision to throw your hat in the ring?
Well, that's a great question, and I could not shake the passion and the calling that I felt and the urging to get involved in public service. I have a great concern for the direction of our country. I love our state. I'm a fifth-generation Texan. I love our country, and I just couldn't sit idly by and watch the insanity continue in Washington, D.C. I've had a passion for everything I've done, whether that was in sports, whether it's been in my business life, the pursuit of ESPN and the job that I did there, and I'm going to take that same passion to Washington because we have to have people going to Washington who are not politicians and who will go up there with a passion to change. I'm going to go rock the boat. I'm not going up there to conform to what happens in Washington, D.C. We must stand bold for three things that I believe in. God is God. Family is family, and the Constitution is the Constitution. All three of those things very important to the success of America.
It's an interesting time to jump in. It's Craig James, candidate for U.S. Senate here from the great state of Texas. It's an interesting time to jump in. Kay Bailey Hutchison has had that seat locked up for a long time. It's now becoming available as she decides not to run for re-election, but you've got the Lieutenant Governor, David Dewhurst. He's running, and he's got a ton of money and a ton of backing. You've got Ted Cruz, who is a guy who's more unknown, but certainly he's got a lot of following as well. I mean, the odds makers say Craig James jumping in now doesn't make sense. Why does it make sense to you, and how do you think you can find chinks in their armor?
Well, I'm going to talk about what I believe in. You know, they're going to talk about their positions and their stances. You and I both know that in politics, 2, 3, 4 months is an eternity. Right. I've got time to get out there and get my message to the people. People know me as the football player, and I'm glad for that, although that was a long time ago. Right. They really know me as the broadcaster. Now they're going to learn from me. Over the last 30 years, I've been an entrepreneur. I've started many businesses. I get it. When we talk about uncertainty, I don't have to have someone come walk in my office and explain to me what regulations do to my businesses. I've started broadcasting schools. I've started a TV, radio, and internet production company. I've been a rancher for the last many years, and my real estate business has suffered greatly these last 3 years. If you haven't lived in this economy, which I have, I've signed the front of the checks. I've worried about people making sure I could keep people working for me. If you haven't been in this economy, you can't get it. Intellectually, you can get it, but you haven't felt it. I have felt the ramifications of the insanity going on in Washington, D.C.
Candidate for U.S. Senate, Republican Craig James. Craig, I'm wondering if you make it, if you get to Washington, what is the first thing you do specifically when it comes to standing your ground against this administration or against the old school Republicans inside the Beltway, Republicans like, and I know that he's in the House, but John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, I think kowtowed and capitulated last month and giving in way too soon to this whole extension of the Social Security tax break, to the entirety of not forcing the president's hand on building the XL pipeline. What do you do specifically, bringing your voice from Texas, representing me and everybody listening right now, if you should get to Washington specifically?
I have a boldness and a passion for what's right in this country and to stand for what's right and not fear the ramifications when you make the tough decisions. We have to get rid of Obamacare, first and foremost. It has got to go. We have to cut wasteful spending. We have got to find a way to have a balanced budget amendment. It makes sense for me in my personal life. It makes sense for you in your personal life. It makes sense for the federal government. They have to get out of the way. I'm going to go up there, and by not conforming and kicking and fussing and fighting for everything that you and I believe in, especially the Constitution, if I can get folks up there to just adhere to the Constitution, because the Constitution is the framework for how we are supposed to live, how the federal government is supposed to act. I'm going to preach Constitution, simplicity. I believe in the Second Amendment. I've got guns stacked between my mattresses in my house. I love to hunt. I love to fish. I'm also a big 10th Amendment guy. We have best interest here for our hearts and what we know works for us in the state of Texas. Leave us alone. Leave the states alone. So, and, Pags, if I can get people to understand and adhere to the Constitution, then we got a chance to pull ourselves out of this hole.
Republican candidate Craig James. Craig, I got to know about illegal immigration, and let me give you a couple of specific stories here just in the past couple of days. The president just added to his cabinet a former vice president from La Raza, I believe a Latino separatist group, if not a Mexican separatist group. Some factions in that group want to reclaim Texas and New Mexico and Arizona and California. Also, he just announced yesterday that he's not going to be sending back 200,000 plus illegal immigrants that are here from El Salvador because of an earthquake that happened in 2001. His policies about pushing the DREAM Act through executive order and not through congressional approval or congressional litigation or legislation is crazy to me and to many people who are listening right now. What do you do specifically bringing the message from Texas that we're tired of the flow of illegals across our border and the federal government doing nothing? What message do you bring to Washington that you might be able to affect change in Washington? Again, you've got inside the Beltway people who don't know what it's like on the ground here in Texas.
Okay, so let's go back to simplification here and the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? We're supposed to secure our borders. We have failed. We have failed for many years to secure our border. Barack Obama keeps kicking the can down the road and just won't accept the fact that we don't have a secure border in Texas and Mexico and all these southern states that are looking at numbers of people coming across. So first and foremost, he has to recognize that, honor what the Constitution says he has to do. The federal government, that's one of the rules and the things that they should abide by. And then for the 12 million people who are here illegally, bottom line is they've broken the law. Look at the Constitution again. It's the rule of law, and they have broken it. We've got to address that. They've got to pay a price for that. They've got to go back and start over and do it the right way. We would love to have people come to America. It's the land of the free. We want them to come here and have the opportunities that they're desirous of. But they've got to come here legally, signed up, and adhering to the Constitution.
Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, Kay Bailey Hutchinson's seat that's going to open soon, Craig James on the line. Craig, when it comes to the economy and when it comes to jobs, Texas is doing better than just about every other state, but we're not doing great. I mean, when President Bush was the president, for a time, the unemployment rate nationally was in the 4s. We're still well over 8%, a number that President Obama said we wouldn't go above if we passed that ridiculous stimulus plan. What do you do I've often said this to Governor Perry himself. I don't understand why the president doesn't jump on Air Force One, come to Texas, and say, okay, how'd you guys do this? That message isn't getting through in Washington. How do you bring the message that you can balance a budget, you can have a better economy, you can have job growth like we're having here in the state of Texas, and you can do it nationally? How are you going to be heard and take that message to Washington?
Well, I'm going to fall back now on my Real Street perspective, and that I've come from Real Street and my jobs and the things that I've done and the balancing of my checkbook from my business and the way that I have run and hired people and provided an economy here in Texas. I've been a part of this can-do spirit that we have in Texas. And so when I go to Washington, D.C., and I tell those folks up there, guys, the uncertainty that you're creating is killing my business. The regulations that you're putting on through the EPA and other organizations is killing our industry in Texas. You have to get out of the way. We love our environment in Texas, and we don't want to do anything to harm it or damage it. But we don't need you telling us how to do oil and gas production in the state of Texas. It's insane that Barack Obama, for instance, has not gone and immediately implemented this Keystone Pipeline. That's nearly 20,000 jobs. That's also a way that we're working towards energy security. We can't be energy independent, but that oil that's in Canada, don't think for a second Canada's not going to ship that west to China if we don't provide them a source. Bring it to Texas. Bring it to our refineries. Let's become energy secure. So to me, it's common sense. But to them up here in Washington, D.C., they're mired in politics. That's why we can't send the same old career politicians to Washington. We need fresh perspective. We need real street examples that goes with boldness to rock the boat for change in Washington.
It's Craig James, U.S. Senate candidate. He's a Republican from right here in the great state of Texas. Craig, a couple of quick hits. I know that you probably have other interviews lined up, and I appreciate your time this morning. But when one runs for office, every negative that's it can possibly be found under any rock anywhere is going to be exposed. Any chinks in the armor are going to be exposed. And right now, even as we speak, I've got somebody on the line. I'm not going to take the phone call because I want to focus on the interview. But I've got somebody on the line questioning whether you had something to do with the demise of Texas Tech. There are people who are very, very serious about their college football here in the state of Texas. And rightfully or wrongfully, people are looking to you as to why Coach Leach is gone. And that, I don't know how a candidate exposes that as you run for an office. But if any negative can be brought out, it's going to be brought out. How do you respond to people who say you had something to do with Texas Tech and the demise of Mike Leach?
You know what? I can't fault people for having an opinion like they have because they weren't in my shoes. We supported our son against an evil act. We didn't get Mike Leach fired. Mike Leach is the one who, in his words, ordered Adam locked away in dark solitary confinement. It's not an allegation. It's indisputable. Players, coaches, trainers, doctors. Adam had a concussion, and on back-to-back practices, twice, he had him put away in dark solitary confinement for the duration of practice. That's a fact. We stood for our son. That same passion I had in standing for our son when he was under attack is the same passion for right that I'm going to take to Washington, D.C. People know how I'm going to respond when something wrong is done, when an evil act is done. So look at that as an example in my life of standing for right. Right is right, wrong is wrong. It is never right to do wrong. And an evil act was done to our son. Marilyn and I, we love our children. We have 4 of them. We would do it again and stand for them if they were ever put under attack like that.
Yeah, I'm the father of 4. I don't really understand why people are calling you out about this, because as far as I could tell from the very beginning, this was about you supporting your child and you not going in blindly saying my child is the be-all, end-all like a lot of us parents think. But no, my child had the situation where he was locked away in a dark room because he was suffering from it. I don't understand why people are coming out so negatively against you, although you know how vehemently people support their colleges. That must be what it's about.
Well, you know what it is, Pags? It's a situation where they weren't in our shoes, and they've heard a lot of stories over the last 2 years, all meant to distract and deflect from what a man actually did,
right.
And it's been successful. We have not gotten in the ditch and mired in the mud challenging all of those. It is what it is. We supported our son against an evil act, and we would do it again. And I know you would. I know any parent out there would. The Lord blessed us with those 4 children, and I'm going to stand by them until the Lord takes me home. Bottom line.
Very well said. Craig, we wish you the best of luck. Do me a favor as we go down the road in this campaign. Let's get back together, okay?
Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed being on with you, and we'll do it again.
All right, great. Craig James, former ESPN analyst, former SMU running back, former New England Patriot, and now Republican candidate for U.S. Senate right here in the great state of Texas. Your thoughts about that? I wanted to ask him about the Texas Tech deal because I've got people on my Facebook talking about it. I wanted to ask him about the Texas Tech deal because I've got people on the line right now who want to talk about it, although the guy who was on the line who wanted to talk about that has hung up now. Is he a viable candidate? Do you have a problem with him because of Texas Tech or SMU or whatever else? I'd love to hear from you. 713-212-5950. I, of course, have had the lieutenant governor on a couple of times now. And, James, I think that he wants to come on again, right? We heard from him, I think, last week.
Yeah, we had a scheduling conflict, and we're still trying to work out where we can get him back on.
Yeah, let's get the lieutenant governor back on. He's the front runner for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate. Kay Bailey Hutchison's seat. That'll be up soon. We've had Ted Cruz on. We haven't had him on in a while. We'll have him on again. And I look forward to having all the candidates on who want that seat. I think the more information you have, the better decision you can make. But I'm wondering, 713-212-5950. Number one, do you think it was out of line that I asked him about Texas Tech? Number two, does what happened at Texas Tech play a role in whether you could take him seriously as a candidate for this office? I'd love to hear from you. 713-212-5950. As I look on my Facebook, I've got a couple of comments on that, and it's interesting to me. Landon says Craig James is an embarrassment. And Mark says Craig James has a lot of nerve running for office after what he has destroyed in Lubbock. I just wish he would go away. California is a good place for him and his son. Well, see, I'm not sure. I mean, how do you fault somebody for saying, I'm going to support my child? And when you hear the details of the story, where is it that the child or where the James family was wrong? Do you just turn a blind eye and not defend your child as being locked away in a dark room after having suffered injury? I'm not sure I get it. Maybe you can help me get it. 713-212-5950. People still holding on about immigration. Let me go to chat.